Good morning, and welcome to LLT 121 Classical Mythology. If any of you have ever had the joy of driving through South Dakota from east to west, have any of you ever driven through South Dakota from east to west? There's an awful lot of it's a beautiful state. I encourage you one and all to go there. You will find every 2 miles a sign advising you to go to Wall Drug. You are 300 miles from Wall Drug. You are 282 miles from Wall Drug. And I speak from experience here when I say that by the time you are within 5 miles of Wall Drug, you are a mindless, gibbering zombie. You get off the freeway in Wall, South Dakota, and you stop at Wall Drug because it's the only thing there. And you have a glass of cold water, and you eat in their cafe and shop in their fine gift shops. And if you're not careful, somebody will slap a bumper sticker on your car saying, "I visited Wall Drug." They did this to our car, but fortunately it wasn't our car. The joke was on them. As you are leaving the Delphic, if you drove to the Delphic Oracle of Apollo to consult the oracle, see the sights, bask in the belly button of the universe, and they were to slap a bumper sticker on your car as you drove out, or your chariot, or your horse, it would say one of these things: curb thy spirit, observe the limit, hate hubris, keep a reverent tongue, fear authority, do not glory in strength, bow down before the divine, and keep woman under rule. These are all actually pieces of graffiti found on the walls of the Delphic Oracle. They represent in capsule form what the god Apollo stands for to the ancient Greeks. Gods and goddesses up here, humans down here. Men up here, women down here. The basic line is avoid hubris. Hubris being the crime of thinking you are equal to or greater than a deity, punishable by death or something that is worse than death. Are there things that are worse than death? Just ask Niobe about that, folks. To a certain extent, yes, Mark?
That seems, at first glance, some of those contradict each other.
Pick two. You forgot to call me Butch.
No, bow down before the divine and fear authority.
No, you're supposed to observe awe before authority.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah, that's what, well, I didn't write it. Some ancient Greek about 2,500 years ago wrote it.
Slash respect. Right?
Yes, exactly. You've all seen, no doubt, the question authority bumper sticker somewhere or another. This one says, fear it. Watch out for it. Good. The god Apollo represents the ideal of what the Greeks like, how the Greeks like to consider themselves. The epitome of brains. He's a culture god and a music god. Brawn. He is a god of physical achievements. He is a hunter. He is an archer, etc. But for all that, he never seems to get the girl. He never seems to get the guy. And when he does, it isn't for very long. It's almost as if to say the ancient Greeks unconsciously are knocking Apollo down a few pegs. He is perhaps analogous to that beautiful, handsome man or that beautiful, gorgeous woman who is rich, wealthy, charming, and utterly miserable all the time. Farrellyn?
Can it just be that in that society back then that women were expected not to want a man, and they were expected to run away and not want to be catched, and do the same with the boy?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Women were supposed to be chaste, supposed to, avoid such things and stuff like that. But I mean, Farrellyn, he's Apollo, damn it. He is like the combination of Stephen Hawking's brain and Brad Pitt's body, or Mel Gibson's body, or what have you, and with Ricardo Montalban's charm. Ovid tells us the story of Apollo and Daphne. Apollo one day, and when it's Ovid, you know it's going to be good. Ovid boasts of his prowess as an archer. I'm the greatest archer. I'm the greatest bow and arrow dude. I killed the monster Pytho. This is a bad career move. Because Cupid, that chubby-cheeked little guy with the wings on his back, he's kind of pudgy. I'm not feeling artistic today. Shoots a bow and arrow at Apollo, which is a love arrow. And once it strikes Apollo, he is filled with love and desire for whatever poor female he sees next. And then Cupid picks up his bow and shoots an arrow of lead through this poor woman by the name of Daphne. And she is going to fall desperately out of love and want nothing to do with whatever man she sees next. And here's what happens. Apollo sees Daphne. He wants her badly. He wants her so badly. Daphne definitely doesn't want Apollo. Daphne wants to hang around with Artemis in the woods, doing womanly things in a feminine manner. And the chase is on. If you go back and read this in the text, it's an example of just how ridiculous an anthropomorphic deity can look. He runs after her saying, I'm not some stupid old shepherd, I'm a god. She keeps running away. I'm not the son of any old god, I'm the god of archery and wisdom and music and stuff, and my dad is Zeus. She keeps running away. And then he tries the absolute worst one of all time. He says, I tell you what, Daphne, if you promise to run more slowly, I will chase you more slowly. Who uses that line? What famous comic book character, what cartoon character uses that line? Pepe Le Pew says that. Oh, my petite cher. That skunk who always chases a black cat who always gets a white stripe painted down her back. Come with me, I will make love to you, my sweetie. I do not know so vast, and I will chase you more slowly. Except for this is the Greek god Apollo doing it. He chases her. She prays to her father, who is a local river god. Please change me into something real quick, Dad. And Ovid says that she stretched out her arms in supplication, and she felt her arms stiffen and her fingers splay out and grow leaves and stuff like that. And she became the original laurel tree. Etiology of the laurel tree. The name Daphne means laurel in ancient Greek. And if that wasn't bad enough, remember, Ovid likes to make people kind of go, ugh, gross sometimes. So, does he have Apollo say, darn, she's a laurel tree now. Oh well, and walk off into the sunset? No, he's got to make a speech. Oh, my dear beloved Daphne, if I cannot have you as a woman, you will always be with me as a tree, as my official tree. And he picks some branches off of Daphne, who is now a laurel tree, you understand, and makes the first laurel wreath and plops it on his head. And makes it the first prize for achievement at the so-called Pythian Games. The Pythian Games are named after the python, the Pytho, the monster that he killed at Mount Delphi. They're held every 4 years. Does this sound kind of familiar? And whereas other festivals like the Olympic Games were purely physical, were purely athletic, the Games of Apollo, the Pythian Games, stress not only athletics, but the intellect. They would have the no-hold-bars wrestling, they would have the chariot race, and maybe a poetry slam, maybe, a poetry race or poetry wrestling or something, or pottery juggling. The idea being, again, that Apollo represented the quote-unquote Greek ideal of brains and brawn. Then why is it that he never gets the girl? Why is it that he never gets the guy? Apollo also gets involved in a relationship, shall we say, with a handsome Spartan lad by the name of Hyacinthus. And yes, folks, you can see where this one's going, can't you?
Butch, when they turned her into a tree, did she ever turn back?
No.
Things ever turn back?
No.
Why do they wish to be turned into something like that?
Well, for one, it's an ideology. Okay? I mean, your kid points at a tree and says, Mom, how'd that tree grow up? Why is it that tree, that kind of tree? And you say, somebody planted it. Your kid's going to stop asking you questions because she's going to think, boy, Mom doesn't know squat, she's boring. So you make up some big fantastic lines. Some lies are so good you just keep telling them over and over again. They never do change into anything. They very seldom change into anything else, Crystal. And actually there's been much interesting scholarship done on just what this means. That is to say, why is it most of the time that women are changed or females are changed into inanimate objects? Guys get changed into animals a lot of the time, but women are often muted. A very dear friend of mine, Dr. Elizabeth Forbes of Notre Dame University, hi Liz, has done some very interesting research on just this thing. They never change back, but how do they perceive their voicelessness? How does it feel, oh God, to be a tree? If you see what I'm getting at. Ovid does have another game going on here in addition to the etiology, but it's taken thousands of years to chip away at just what it is. Good question, rather indifferently answered, but I tried. Phil? Okay, will you go on? Because we have to finish Apollo. Where's Hyacinthus going to wind up, Elizabeth? Scott? Mike? Somebody ought to give these goofs a botany class. Yes, thank you. One day Apollo, who's a god, and his friend Hyacinthus, the lovely Spartan boy, are out throwing a discus. Hyacinthus throws the discus about, say, 25 feet. And Apollo, golf clap, that's really good, Hyacinthus. My turn. Then Apollo, of course, picks the discus up and throws it about 700 feet, being a god, right? Devoted little Hyacinthus runs after it, and it goes spring back and smacks someone right in the face, and he dies. That's hilarious, isn't it, Mark? Ghoul. He dies. Bringing up the interesting question. We've got miasma here. We've got blood guilt. Hyacinthus is dead. We have to blame somebody. Who are we going to blame? Heather, you're smiling. We already have the wind. Heather, who would you blame? Clear out, clear out. Who would you blame? Tree?
Just because it's so unlikely that it would be.
Keep guessing. Are you an ancient Greek?
No.
This is the beginning of product liability. This is hypothetical. This is not told about this myth, but it's a known fact about ancient Greek law that very often when, let's say, I climb up a ladder to change a light bulb, the ladder breaks and I fall and croak. The Athenians, for example, the people of Athens would put the ladder on trial. And they would say, well, would you defend a ladder? I mean, I'd now like to call my client to the stand. What do you say for yourself? Let it be entered into the record that the defendant had no defense. There's a play of Aristophanes called The Wasps, which makes fun of the Athenians' passion for trials. And they put a dog on trial for stealing cheese. And they ask the dog what he has to say in his defense. And he says, ow, ow, which is apparently an ancient Greek version of a dog noise. Ow, ow. What they would do is, and they have archaeologists have excavated huge piles of these things. Ladders, discuses, jars with guilty of murder, condemned, written on them and busted up in pieces and dumped on a pile outside the city walls. So the discus did it. Here's another story, shifting it into overdrive, of Apollo and Coronis. Now, Apollo and Coronis did, in fact, make a love connection. But while Apollo, who is also an auxiliary sun god, he is associated in some circles with the sun god because he's a god of enlightenment and blah, 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 blah. Apollo and Coronis have an affair, they have a thingy. Coronis gets pregnant, and Apollo goes off to work. Coronis makes the bad career move of messing around on Apollo. It's not easy being Apollo. And this white bird, named the Raven, catches them in flagrante delicto. Let's all say that together. That sounds really good. In flagrante delicto. Okay, that's Latin. You want to know what that means? Take Latin. And sees them in flagrante delicto and immediately reports to Apollo. I saw Coronis and some dude in flagrante delicto. Apollo shoots her with an arrow, but she's pregnant. And he takes the baby from her womb. He's a little baby named Asclepius. And hands him off to the nice centaur Chiron. A Chiron is part horse and part human. Chiron is the nice centaur who trains young heroes and stuff like that. Most of them are the ancient Greek equivalent of bikers. And Asclepius grows up to be the god of medicine. Asclepius grows up to be the god of medicine and fathers several minor health divinities. Yes?
What was the guy's name that he came
Chiron, the nice centaur. Okay, Butch, your question. Mark?
No, it's fine. I read that.
What did you read about him?
Oh, about how they would go to the temples and hope they had dreams that told them about how they are supposed to heal.
Exactly, that's called incubation. It was called temple sleep. You were supposed to go into the temple of Asclepius at Kos and visualize yourself getting well. I could lie down there and visualize my hair growing back.
I just thought it was funny because some of the things they dreamed that they were supposed to do was like, if you're having a fever, you're supposed to run for 50 miles in the hot desert or something like that.
And then you'll be dead and all your problems will be over. But in fact, positive visualization, while it will not bring back my slightly receding hairline, is a very useful technique, not only in motivating yourself to do things, but in actually healing. If you have a positive attitude, studies have shown, I just made that up, but I'm sure they would show, that you will in fact get better quicker. Asclepius is such a great doctor. He is so good that he raises this guy named Hippolytus from the dead. You're going to read about the sad story of Hippolytus over the weekend. And Dr. Carawan will do a presentation on it for your benefit. But Hippolytus was this guy who made the bad career move of turning down Aphrodite. Not the goddess herself, but Hippolytus was kind of an uptight sort of guy who didn't want to have sex with anybody. He wanted to hang around with Artemis and just hunt. Aphrodite got mad at him, so Aphrodite got mad at this kid Hippolytus, so he made Hippolytus' stepmother fall in love with her. Yeah, Hippolytus had a stepmother named Phaedra. Okay, very succinctly, we got Hippo, who is the son of Theseus by his first wife, and Theseus' second wife is Phaedra, who's one of these trophy wife types, young and beautiful and stuff like that. He's about 45, bald, fat, punchy. One day when he's off on a business trip, Aphrodite, who's kind of mad at Hippolytus anyway, says, I'm going to fix Hippolytus by making his stepmother fall in love with him. Phaedra falls in love with Hippolytus. She tries not to admit it. She tries to deny it. And finally, her old nurse said, go for it, Phaedra. What the heck? Can't hurt. Worst you can do is say no. And so she kind of hits on Hippolytus off stage, and Hippolytus just goes ballistic. He just rants and raves. He gives a misogynist's credo. Women, this base coin which men find counterfeit. Why, O Lord Zeus, if you had decided to give sons to men, did you make the source of it be woman? Blah, 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 blah. And while Hippo is doing this little rant, Phaedra slinks off and hangs herself with a little note saying, Hippolytus raped me. That's as much as the plot as I'm going to tell you.
I have a question. Did you say Hippolytus hangs out with Artemis?
Yes.
She doesn't mind that he's a guy?
Not much. Not much.
Oh, is he a young kid or is he just old?
He's about 21, 22.
And she doesn't care?
She likes him. Read the play. Okay. Apollo has a son named Asclepius. Asclepius raises this Hippolytus from the dead. Zeus, who doesn't like it when people are raised from the dead, he likes dead people to stay dead, throws a thunderbolt at Hippolytus, at Asclepius, and fries him to a crisp. What's Apollo going to do about it? Well, yeah, okay, somebody kills your kid. What are you going to do about it? You got a point there, Chad. If Zeus did it, what are you going to do? Bubba Smith comes to your hometown and wrecks your car. You say, Mr. Smith, I think no. But he's got to kill somebody. There's some miasma going on here. Who does he kill? Huh? He's still dead. No, he's not.
No, he brought him back to life.
Well, he's dead again.
How?
I killed him.
Why?
I don't like him very much. I don't think any of you are going to like Hippolytus very much. Moosehead, what do you think?
Find one of the mortal kids of Zeus and kill them.
Real close. Kill the Cyclopes who made the thunderbolt and kill them. Huh? Yeah, but we brought him up for this cameo. Remember, you're expecting too much consistency from these stories. You don't watch enough soap operas. Any of you watch soap operas? Like 1 week, Patch. The mysterious Patch is a race car driver. Next week, he's an open heart surgeon. Next week, like this, he's played by a guy who's 3 inches taller. He's got the patch on this eye. And he's a college professor. And he's in love with Scorpia. I mean, you know, they do this stuff all the time. They do it today. That's entertainment. As a result, Apollo incurs miasma, for which Apollo has to atone by spending a year under the rule of King Admetus of Thessaly. And this is a story I really like. Admetus is married to his queen Alcestis. They live in Thessaly. Thessaly is a region of ancient Greece. And Apollo has to go off and serve them for 1 year. He has to be their slave. Yes. It can be very helpful to have a powerful Olympian god like Apollo as your household slave. You can say, Apollo, take care of my MasterCard. And he's got it done. Admetus finds out from an oracle that he's going to die real soon. Unless, well, he goes to Apollo, and he has Apollo intervene for him. And Apollo says, okay, I can't get you completely off the hook, King Admetus of Thessaly, but what I can do is get you this concession. If you can find somebody who will die in your place for you, you are off the hook. And so Admetus goes around in the beginning of this play, the Alcestis, by Euripides, king of tragedy, asking his old dad, 97 years old, Dad, would you die for me? Hell no. Mom, would you die for me? Oh, that's just great. You think because I'm old and I'm looking forward, I'm going to be dead soon enough. Bugger off. And stuff like that. And finally, he finds one person who will die for him. His wife, Alcestis. You can see all the makings of, of a talk show miasma here. Alcestis says, I'll die for you, honey. And she agrees to die for him. Admetus takes her up on the offer. You're so wonderful. You're the best, babe. And I'll tell you what, I'm never going to get married again. I'll make a statue of you, and I'll put it in bed with me when I go to sleep at night. He really says that. You are one babe. You are, And meanwhile, it comes time for Alcestis to meet her rendezvous with death. The god Thanatos, which is Greek for death, shows up, probably dressed in black, saying, "Come on, Alcestis." Alcestis says, "Oh, I'm going..." You feel sorry for Alcestis until she starts doing the tragic heroine shtick. "I'm going to die now. I'm leaving you, but I'm marrying death." The big, huge Titanic guilt trip. It's looking really dismal. He's saying, "Bye, honey, bye. Miss you. I'm going to die now. Oh, I'm such a selfless wife." And just when you think, oh, this sucks, man, how's this going to end? We get what is called, in theatrical parlance, Deus ex machina. A god out of the machine. A god out of the stage machine. Even in ancient times, the Greeks, and the Romans stole it from the Greeks, would have this big thingy up above the stage where they could kind of like reel down props if they wanted them. Or sometimes a deus ex machina, the god who stops in and makes everything cool. Who, when the humans have bungled it into a situation, and sometimes gods too, have bungled it into a situation that there is no way out, you've just reeled down a deus ex machina to take care of it. The deus ex machina in this case is none other than Hercules. Now think about it. Apollo is the god of really smart, wisdom and enlightenment and junk. And he just made matters worse. So all of a sudden Hercules is gradually and they got, what's his nuts? Kevin Sorbo or whatever. And he faces off in a wrestling match with Death. And Thanatos tries to trip him, and you know the rest. Hercules picks him up, puts him in the atomic spin hole, body slams him, says, get the bleep out of here. And we have a happy ending. Alcestis gets to live. Everybody is happy except for who? Why is Admetus not happy? No, he doesn't. He's going to get something worse than death. He's getting his wife back. Not that that's bad necessarily, but he's going to have to spend the rest of his life hearing, what do you mean we're not going to go watch a movie tonight? Hey, I'll have you know, I was willing to die for you. We're going to go watch Out of Africa 5 times in a row. Yeah, it just brings my hackles up too. They're going to watch all the chick movies in the world, and there's nothing you can do because I was willing to die for you. Clean the house. Okay. Apollo as culture god. Prometheus is a culture hero in that he gives most of the rudiments of culture to mankind and to womankind. That is to say, fire is a rudiment of culture, a building block, if you will. If you are to read that part in the Prometheus Bound where Prometheus is ticking off on his, well, not on his fingers, obviously, his contributions to humankind, he will say he invented mathematics and engineering and reading and writing and shipbuilding and so on. Because to Aeschylus, the guy who wrote Prometheus Bound, Prometheus is a symbol of the human desire to better itself, the human race's desire to better itself. Apollo brings the refinements of humankind, the things that set apart the Greeks from barbarians. Do any of you know what the technical definition of barbarian is to an ancient Greek? Real close, Scott. Somebody who doesn't speak Greek, which also, I'm sure I told you this before, included the Hebrews, ancient Egyptians, and other people who were building pyramids and cities while the ancient Greeks were still living in trees. By representing the refinements of human culture, Apollo represents the Greeks' own fervent belief that they were infinitely more cultured than anyone else. As opposed to Dionysus, the god of wine, partying, and ecstatic possession, who had to win acceptance among the Olympians in the myths, and actually among the Greeks, to judge from all the stories where Dionysus comes into town, they deny his worship, so he has to drive everybody berserk. Apollo was regarded as one of the Olympians from the beginning. Apollo represented to the Greeks the perfect blend of brains and brawn, intellect and brute force, to which the Greek man might properly aspire. On the other hand, he is awfully uptight, and Apollo is definitely not the sort of god whose worship would inspire people with ecstatic joy. Curb thy spirit, observe the limit, hate hubris, keep a reverent tongue, fear authority, do not glory in strength, bow down before the divine, keep woman under rule. These things, these little graffitos, these graffiti that are found on, they scratched in various locations on the temple wall at Delphi, stand for everything the worship of Dionysus is against. Curb thy spirit, let it free. Observe the limit. Ha, what limit? Hate hubris. What's hubris? Keep a reverent tongue. No, scream at the top of your lungs. To heck with authority. Bow down before the divine. Heck, you've got the divine in you with enthusiasmos. And in the next set of culture myths that I'm going to recount briefly, we see Dionysus, or the forces of Dionysus, the forces of, let's go crazy, pitted against the forces of Apollo. You will recall that satyrs are lusty, zesty, shaggy-legged, cloven-footed dudes who hang around with Dionysus. There was one satyr by the name of Marsyas, Marsyas, who found the double flute invented and then discarded by Athena. Athena discarded the double flute, as we're going to find out in our next exciting class, because it made her cheeks pucker up while she played it. So she threw it away. And this satyr named Marsyas picked it up, and he thought it was pretty cool. Athena pounded the tar out of him for taking up her instrument. It's kind of a hubris, but Marsyas gets so good on the double flute that he changes Apollo himself to a contest. What is the technical term for behavior like this? Hubris. And what is the punishment for hubris? Death, or something that makes you wish you were dead. Here's what happens. They make a deal that the victor can do as he wishes with the loser. Apollo wins and decides to flay Marsyas, carve his skin off. And the gore that flows from the wounds of the dead satyr Marsyas becomes a river. Okay.
Did every river in Greece have an etiology about someone dying from it?
No, some of them were other colors. As we'll see in our next exciting myth. And he also turns Marsyas' skin into the first drum. You may be more familiar with Midas, the king of Phrygia. Phrygia is here in the southern part of Asia Minor, otherwise known as modern-day Turkey. Midas is known as the golden boy with the history, the track record of making bad career moves. Here's what happened. One day, while Midas, the king of Phrygia, was out walking around, he found Dionysus' drinking buddy, Silenus, the ugliest guy in the whole universe, just lying passed out in his drunken stupor on the ground. Rather than roll him or beat him up or do something nasty to him, Midas made what he thought was a good career move and brought Silenus back to Dionysus. Excuse me, your godship, Dionysus. Here's your drinking buddy, Silenus. Dionysus says, that was well done, King Midas. And in return for this, Midas, I'm going to give you a favor. And Midas says, I'd like you to give me the grace of whatever I touches turns into gold. And at first, this is really great. Bzz, golden lectern, golden chalkboard, bzz, golden half-drinking quick slam Pepsi bottle. But what happens when you actually want to drink the coffee? And solid. It turns into gold. What happens when your little daughter comes running up, Daddy, 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 and you scoop her up into your arms and, honey, she's turned to gold too. Midas is stricken by a severe dose of Artemis. Now I get it. Everything turns to gold.
Why didn't he turn it?
I'll fix you, Butch. And so he goes back to Dionysus and says, Dionysus, your godship, that was really stupid. What can I do to get rid of this curse that I wished on myself? And Dionysus says, oh, Midas, go bathe yourself in the river Pactolus and wash off your golden touch. And that mark is why the waters of the river Pactolus are banked with golden sand. I've never seen the river Pactolus. Quite sure I never will. I've never even seen a picture of it. But I would be willing to bet that it has very brightly colored sand along its banks in some region or another, probably very shallow, very clear, with a very sandy bottom as well. And when Crystal's ancient Greek kid asks, Mommy, how did this happen? How did it get so gold? You don't go off into some, like rant about various silicate compounds. Say, oh yeah, that's where Midas washed off his golden touch. How dumb is this guy, Midas? Well, he goes off into the woods to worship Pan after this. Remember that Pan is another god who is associated with Dionysus. Pan's playing the pan flute. They're all dancing and drinking. Pan gets so impressed with himself that he challenges Apollo to a contest. This is what I call the fire on the mountains, run boys run theme of classical mythology. With Midas is appointed as one judge, and the other judge is a local mountain by the name of Tmolus. Okay, wise guy, obviously it's a semi-anthropomorphic mountain god. There was probably a face of the mountain that looked like and they said, that must be the that must be the mountain Tmolus. So the mountain and Midas are sitting there listening to the music competition between Pan and Apollo. Pan leads off with a few sprightly selections on the pan flute. Maybe the theme from Chariots of Fire and something like that. Then a band of demons joins in. Just kidding. Meanwhile, then Apollo pulls out his lyre. Doo-doo-doo, and he plays some beautiful music. JR, who do you vote for?
Apollo.
Jared, who do you vote for? Okay, good. Good for you. Because here's what happens. Apollo says, hey, look, the mountain voted for Apollo. How does it feel to be dumber than a rock? And you may need a hat. Because Apollo gets so hacked off, he makes Midas grow donkey ears. So since you are no judge of music, he gives him ass's ears. Probably wiping the smile right off his face. Okay, now he's kind of hacked. But he's the king of Phrygia, and he obviously can't go around without donkey ears flapping out of his head. What do you do? If you're a person of hair, and your hair is not behaving itself, what do? You wear a hat. So Midas was said to have invented the turban. He would fold his ears up under his hat, and pretty soon everybody in Phrygia was wearing them. They didn't know why they were wearing them. Problem is that, Midas's hair would get kind of skanky after a while. He'd have to go to the royal barber to get his hair cut. But obviously the royal barber would know the secret, right? Are you following me? So Midas said, Barber, you tell anybody about my ears, and something very, very bad is going to happen to you. And for a while that worked. But I'd be willing to bet that everybody in this room is now or has been in possession of a secret that is just so good, so juicy, that you have to share it with someone. You can't be the only person in the world who knows this secret. You ever been there, Heather? You think, I gotta tell somebody. But if you tell somebody, you get killed. So here's what the guy did. The barber did. He dug a hole in the ground. The best place to dig a hole is in the ground. And he whispered into it, Hamidas Arasu Okos Eche, which is Greek for King Midas has ass's ears. Then he buried it, his secret. Some reeds grew up on the spot, and you guessed it, when the wind whistles through the reeds at night, you can still hear them saying in ancient Greek, King Midas has ass's ears. That's the end of the stories about Apollo and Dionysus. He's a cultured, uptight, get a grip sort of god. In our next exciting meeting, we will talk about, or I will talk very rapidly about Athena and Hermes. And I'll see you later. Have a nice day.